Hey, cut the music, cut the music.
Man, I'm in the middle of a song.
It's an emergency, only for a minute. Will everybody listen up, please?
No, he's just getting everybody worked up.
Your kids are in danger. What? 300 years ago, the Sanderson sisters bewitched people. And now they've returned from their grave. Hey, man, I'm serious. It's not a joke.
This has gone far enough.
I know this sounds dumb, but they're here tonight. They're right over there.
Wow.
Thank you, Max, for that marvelous introduction.
Cinderella story.
You want answers?
We're on a mission from God.
Inconceivable! Take your stinking paws off me!
I'm afraid I can't do that.
Have fun storming the castle!
Hey everybody, welcome to The Story Cauldron, finding the folktales, fables, and philosophies behind your favorite Hollywood films. I'm Bobby, the movie dude.
I'm Anthony, the philosophy guy.
I'm Garrett, and I'm here.
I'm Melissa, and where am I?
You're in the podcast that's all Tolkien's fault. Just like how Tolkien described in his essay on fairy stories, every story is motivated by other stories that came before it. So we are watching movies and talking about the stories that came before them.
And today's film is about a virgin who's up all night to get lucky, but just ends up getting swarmed by older women trying to eat his soul. That's right, Hocus Pocus. So let's start with the movie itself.
Well, after accidentally, but stupidly, resurrecting 3 evil witches on Halloween night, 3 kids, along with a cursed cat and a zombie, try to stop them before they take over the town. Dun dun.
So I hope that we can still be friends once we're done with this, guys.
Would you?
We're all friends here.
Debatable.
It's a safe place.
Lies.
I had never seen this movie until last night. I pulled a Garrett on this one, I have to say. So this one was entirely new. I don't know how I
How
missed
did you
this.
dodge this movie for so long?
Well, it wasn't really an intentional thing. It just, I don't know.
Now
It just
you
never
know
came
how
up.
it
It's
feels.
insulting to the film.
I know, yeah, I guess. And as if that, just to make matters worse, I did fall asleep while watching it last night. I don't know. I don't know what to say.
All right, well, you haven't seen the movie, but the
I'll
rest
give
of us
you a
have.
pass on this one.
I'll use my one pass this time.
The one.
The one pass that I've used like 7 times.
Well, you just barely watched the movie, but the
Yes.
3 of us, including our guest, Melissa,
Hi, Melissa.
Hi there.
we've actually, I'm pretty sure, have watched this multiple times every year around Halloween.
Well, yeah, in
Halloween,
ways
Christmas, 4th of July.
Really,
Why
any
not?
time is a good time for Hocus Pocus.
I was surprised how much of it I felt like I already knew just from having listened to the 3 of you.
Well, I mean, we decided that we needed to watch it last night to get ready for this podcast. And we turned it on and immediately started working on different things. Yet, right at milliseconds before the line came up the movie, we'd be screaming from the other room, Thackeray Banks! Or, pull over, let me see your driver's permit. Just that, the quotable anachronisms.
So is this was a movie you guys grew up watching? Do you
yeah.
remember seeing it for the
Oh,
first
yeah.
time?
No, that was too long ago.
Same here.
You don't remember seeing it for the first time? It just always been there?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, this movie came out before I was born, so I mean, I just immediately grew up with it. Probably watched it when I was like 1, and I don't remember it. So
Yeah, just like... Well, I remember watching it for the first time in the movie theater.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I was in the Burley Theater, and I was there with my cousins, and we were watching it from the balcony, which has been closed for,
Yeah.
I would say at least a decade.
Wow, okay.
At least. Probably like 15 years. And so I just remember seeing the cat on the screen and eating popcorn. I was like 4 years old. I don't know. 5. It came out in 93, so I'd have been 5 years old. Wow. So yeah,
So were you scared by it? Do you remember that?
I thought it was awesome.
Or you just loved it?
But I did, okay, one thing that did come out of this movie was the fear of zombies. He was a cool zombie in the movie, but I was like, holy crap, he just came back from the dead. Even though the witches came back from the dead, he was more terrifying because he was like...
He looks like death.
He was falling apart. His fingers were falling off. And his head.
And his
Multiple
mouth was
times.
sewn shut.
And his mouth was shut.
That's kind of creepy.
that's true.
He had bad hair.
But he's the coolest one in the movie.
Super cool zombie.
Tubular.
Tubular. Hollywood!
So this was one of those movies that Disney had high hopes for, but I mean, it did well financially, but it seems like it is remembered kind of in the way that you're describing here. People love it, not because it was ever an award winner or because it was a gigantic blockbuster. It did not make a lot of money, decent money, but people grew up with it, and so they have this. It's kind of attained cult status. So people watch it every Halloween, and here we are. So
I love it so much.
I would even say this is one of the most popular Halloween movies.
Mm-hmm.
I can see why. I mean, it is entertaining. It's really fun. It's goofy. I don't think it's designed.
You fell
to
asleep
be scary.
during it.
That's true. I'm trying to be helpful here. I'm being generous. It's. I can say nice things about it, even if I was unconscious.
I get it. You're good.
You soaked it in. Osmosis.
Osmosis, that's right. And I did go back and finish watching it.
Oh,
that's good.
Which I have to tell you, though, it is really confusing when I just wake up and suddenly there's a zombie out of nowhere. Like, I totally missed his introduction. I don't even remember his name at this point.
Billy.
Okay, yeah. So I didn't realize I had fallen asleep, except that now there's this zombie that they're friends with or something.
Yeah. Well, he's on their side.
Yeah,
he's
just
got a
took a while.
grudge against Winifred.
Mm-hmm. But if you miss like those 20 minutes there in the middle, it's a very strange experience.
As it is with a majority of movies. Let's be honest.
If you miss the exposition, you're kind of screwed in some spots.
I was trying to think of a clever segue out of that, but I got nothing.
I don't know. I just got looked at and I was like, oh, I should say something.
I'm just here for the booze.
All right, so let's go over the movie real quick for those select few that have never seen it. We've gone over the synopsis a little bit. The movie opens up in Old Salem, witchcrafty times, and
the 1600s.
The 1630s.
Witchcrafty times.
Witchcrafty times. That's a term.
Isn't it 1630s?
It is now.
90s.
And we open up with Thackeray Banks. Most people know him as McGee on NCIS. Same guy.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
And he wakes up. He's looking for his sister. His sister's been taken away by the witches. The witches suck her life force and make... That got creepy. they suck her life force to make themselves younger. And then Thackeray Banks is turned into a cat. And then you wind up, 300 years later?
Well, the witches get executed.
No, the witches are executed. They say they're going to come back if somebody lights this candle. And 300 years later, this guy meets this girl. They break into this house with his little sister.
Any girl. He meets
the
Allison.
girl.
Allison.
With those yabos.
Right.
And they break into the house. He lights the candle. The witches come back, and hilarity ensues.
Which, honestly, I was a little confused about that. Like, Billy the zombie is a zombie. He's dead. His head's popping off. And
yes.
But these witches are just like, they're fine, right?
They are living.
They're right
until the sun comes up.
I guess it's that. I mean, they don't have any kind of. There's no.
It's different kind of magic, bro.
I guess it's just magic. You can get away with anything.
Magic exists,
it's magic.
Y'all. Copyright.
And the
it's less than 10%.
And don't forget that Thackeray's still around.
Oh yeah. Yes, he is a black cat in Salem,
guarding the cottage so nobody will light the candle. Like the idiot.
And he failed.
I did think that was clever. I thought cursing him to have eternal life and have to live with his guilt. I thought that was a pretty smooth way of not. I mean, it was a convenient plot device, but it was actually. I mean, that's pretty dark as far as punishment goes from the witches.
Yeah. Well, it hit me last night while watching it again. I'm like, wow, this is kind of kind of dark. You see the little girl slumped in the chair, dead. Whoa. This hits so much harder right now than it did when I was 6.
Yeah. I also had to laugh every time they really enunciated the word virgin. We get it. We get it. I don't know if they're getting paid by the word or what, but
it is Disney. They got to keep it clean.
Yeah, I don't know. When I was 12, I ended up walking up to my mom and I was like, "What's a virgin?" And she's like, "Don't worry about it."
We'll talk about this later.
Yeah. And I was like, "But they say it in hookups. It's fine. Don't worry about it."
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot that goes into this movie. It's very story cauldron-y, I would say. Any type of folklore about witches can be applied to this movie. Well, except for maybe no, never mind. I was going to say Baba Yaga, or Baba Yaga.
Yaga.
Yeah, that Russian witch, but she has like a cauldron as well. And so,
Yeah.
I mean, there's little bits of witches from all over the place in this movie. But I think it focuses mainly on Salem witch trials.
Yeah, it definitely has a big influence there. I mean, there are witches in almost any culture you can point to. It's this idea that there's magic in the world and that there are people who are controlling it. Whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, it's a thing pretty much wherever you go. In the West, in Europe, it's largely a bad thing. We tend to think of witches as evil.
Consorting with the devil.
Exactly, yeah.
Naughty.
Probably has a lot to do with the way that the Bible talks about witchcraft and sorcery as this evil, shameful thing that is forbidden. So anybody who would do it is doing forbidden things.
Well, we actually just had this conversation. What was the Bible verse that?
Oh, dear.
Leviticus, I think, or
there
something?
There was a Leviticus, there was a
Leviticus.
Thessalonians.
Yeah, about
flying about.
Don't do witchcraft, basically.
And don't partake in anything that has to do with evil and witches and the devil.
Yeah, and so it's pretty blunt. I mean, sometimes the Bible's kind of vague and gray. Not on this issue. It's pretty blunt. It's like, no, don't do it. With the impetus behind it kind of being, don't do it because it's dangerous, because it's something that can mess you up. And
oh, yeah.
So anybody who would dare to play around with that kind
with
of
a
thing.
Ouija board.
Ooh, no.
Even saying the word.
Yeah.
Like, tarot cards are one thing. Ouija boards are another thing.
And
yeah, that movie. Oof.
in Hocus Pocus, doesn't it say that the sisters, or at least the oldest one, is actually consorting with Satan? Didn't she get the book from him?
Oh, right, yeah.
Boo.
Yeah. I think he was my favorite character.
The book?
I love that book. Thing's hilarious.
He's excellent at blinking.
I know. He seems like a really good listener. But
He doesn't interrupt you.
He does roll his eye occasionally.
yeah, well, I would too if I was with those women.
Sorry, Bette Midler.
We love you.
So I think that a lot of the pictures that we see here, like with the cauldron and with the Eye of Newt and all the stuff they're throwing into their
You always add too
potion.
much Eye of Newt.
Yeah, all of that.
Just a bit of tongue.
I mean, how many different witches can you think of from pop culture, from literary history that are using those same kinds of tropes, right? I mean, I think of Shakespeare even is using
Oh,
Yeah.
really?
almost some of those exact same lines.
My
Yeah.
first thought was Debbie Reynolds in Halloween Town. Because I'm on the Disney train at the moment. You couldn't tell.
Well, hey, that's fair, and that's more that we've talked about this before. How some classic horror villains in recent years have kind of been rehabilitated into heroes, more heroic figures. That seems to be happening with witches now, with things like Harry Potter and I mean Halloween Town is another good example. But I don't know, things like The Wizard of Oz, or
Oh, right.
I guess you got kind of good and bad witches there, though, don't you? Although if you watch the movie, they're all bad witches. I think Glinda's horrible. Maybe that's a different
Linda with a
conversation.
G.
Girl, Linda.
So Hocus Pocus, though, is really going back more to the old picture of witches as these unashamedly evil things. I mean, they're funny and they're entertaining, But they're talking about eating children. Like, they're not heroes by any measure.
And they're... Okay, I have to bring this up because I think it's hilarious. The fact that they're constantly talking about things they have no reason knowing, like, pull over, let me see your driver's permit, but they have no idea what a paved road is.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, okay, cool. What's happening? 'Tis firm. Yeah, it's a road.
Yeah. Apparently, the metaphysics of their venture into hell are a little unclear here. They got to see some things. They got to learn that song that they go ham on at the dance.
What's up?
But
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
they miss all of the basic daily things like basic infrastructure.
Driver's
Fire
permit.
alarm,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Sprinkler system.
That's right. Oh no, it's the burning fire of death.
Burning rain of
It is
death.
but
Burning
water.
rain of death. Yeah.
And
Tis
they
but
know
water.
the word dude. And what is that? Dude.
Okay, I feel like we need to start talking about witches because we just keep getting stuck in
We keep
movie
getting
quotes.
stuck. It's quotable. It's very
It's
quotable.
very quotable. I make quotes from it all the time.
All right, so we're talking about what? Pop culture witches? So, yeah, let's start thinking of any type of witches that we can find in pop culture or literature. Because, I mean, a lot of them, they all follow the same type of formula, I think. So, you mentioned Shakespeare.
Yeah.
The
Scottish play.
The Scottish play.
Yeah.
We won't say...
Please don't.
Okay, we won't say it because Garrett is an actor. But...
I do theater, and I'm very superstitious, and don't mess with me.
We'll say the Scottish play.
I've got a show in 3 weeks.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, you can say it.
I could say it. In fact, I have to say Macbeth every once in a while.
But yeah, Act 1, Scene 1.
Yeah, the Three Witches.
Opens right up on... And I think if there's one image of witches in Western... kind of the Western mindset, it's that right there. It's the old hags over the cauldron, throwing stuff in, dancing around it in the middle of the night, being all creepy, and really, I mean, freaking people out. It's quite a start. It's a really
it
fantastic
sounds like a
start to
party
show.
to me.
Yeah, quite a party. But the thunder and the lightning and all that. Even just the bubble, toil and trouble. I mean, you're seeing that come back in Hocus Pocus once again.
I mean, that opening scene where they're in the cottage putting together the potion is very, very reminiscent of Shakespeare in that opening scene. I mean, you got the three old hags
dancing around the
cauldron.
Right.
And, but I mean, that's kind of where the comparisons kind of...
Yeah, I don't think Thackeray's going to be the King of Scotland.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
mean, unfortunately.
What a twist.
King of Scotland's a cat? Yeah, but I mean, that imagery is spot on. What are some other ones that you guys can think of?
Well, okay, tell me that. Do you think that Mary Poppins qualifies as a witch?
See...
Something. Obviously, like a witch.
Yeah.
Not, I mean, she's
got
guess
some
a
type of
good
magical
witch.
powers.
Yeah. I like the theory that she's a Time Lord, personally. But from... Oh, Garrett.
Doctor Who is Mary Poppins.
From Doctor Who. Because her bag is bigger on the inside and... Yeah.
See, and I was thinking of Halloween Town because she has the bag that follows her around like a dog.
That she also, she can fit an apartment in there.
But that's because it's connected to her house, so whatever's in her house, she can get through her bag at any given time.
That is smart.
Who says that Mary
need
Poppins
that.
doesn't have the same type of witchery?
Is Mary Poppins Debbie Reynolds?
Holy cow!
Sorry,
I would
Julie
say
Andrews.
Arguably even better. If there's one motherly figure even better than Debbie Reynolds, it's got to be Julie Andrews.
But I don't know.
She proved herself in The Sound of Music.
Right?
The idea that Mary Poppins is a witch, I actually kind of like that, but it would be like she has to be a good witch. I mean, she works with children.
Right, and
Not
she...
sucking out their lives.
Exactly.
But
Enriching
building...
them.
Unless...
Oh,
dear.
Unless it's the long con.
Let's go fly a kite?
Mary she's just trying to... a
the
spoonful of
kite's made out
sugar.
of children.
She's trying to fatten them up.
Okay, this isn't Hansel and Gretel.
I was just going to say that. But what if it is?
But what if it is?
They're all tied together. It's like
That's
this
right.
In a circle,
soul-sucking
in a hoop.
triangle.
Well, they're making a sequel to Mary Poppins, so maybe they'll flesh that out.
Prequel.
Oh, is it a prequel? I thought it was a sequel.
Oh, yeah.
Emily Blunt is going to be...
She better do
I
a
think
good
so.
job.
We will see.
It is.
Yes.
I've been researching.
I would love for Bette Midler to cameo in the new
Give her some
Mary
pointers.
Poppins. That's right. Recipes.
Some
No, I think anymore people are just going to mainly think of Harry Potter, though. If you're thinking of witches.
If you're thinking of witchcraft and wizardry.
Yeah,
You gotta add the wizardry.
So big in the cultural consciousness right now.
It is.
Yeah.
And it's not going to change. I mean, it's not even that old, but it's...
But we'll have to dedicate like 3 other podcasts to Harry Potter.
Talk about Harry Potter.
Yeah.
Marathon.
J.K. Rowling is like a story cauldron pro.
Yeah, seriously.
So,
quite intentionally for her.
So yeah, we could talk about that in another episode. But
Wait, you said the Salem witch trials.
yeah,
Let's get
okay.
back to that.
So let's get into the Salem witch trials.
Ooh, let's go hunt some witches.
Yeah, almost everybody is familiar with that, mostly because of Arthur Miller
and high school English.
And
What
high
a
school
guy.
English. It's 11th grade English, isn't it? Yeah, 11th grade English.
The Crucible.
So, if those of you don't know, Arthur Miller took an actual event, the Salem witch trials, twisted some things around, changed some characters' names a little bit.
Not
but
necessarily.
Some, not all.
Some.
True. John Proctor, Tituba.
Yeah, and Abigail wasn't the
Sarah
That
Good.
was different.
Abigail was the one that was kind of changed around a little from the actual history that took place in the 1600s in Salem, Massachusetts, and actually Old Salem Village, which is actually now Danvers. Yeah, little trivia for you. And it inspired The Crucible, which was, about the communist witch hunt in McCarthy era. But basically what the story is, these girls go out and get caught dancing around a fire kind of type thing. They get in trouble.
They're naked.
They're naked, dancing around a fire. Thanks, Gear.
Sorry, I'm just trying to find a way to bring it back.
Yeah. Well, it was like,
nude.
They were nude. So what The Crucible is, and the Salem witch trials, we have these young girls dancing around a fire, naked, and they're trying to figure out who their husbands are going to be, right?
Yeah, they're trying to... It's something
It's
like
something
that.
similar to that. Anyway, they get caught by the Reverend, and they start pointing blame at who's a witch in the town and who's causing trouble here and there and there. And by the end of it, you get a lot of people who are accused of witchcraft and a lot of people who are found guilty, air quotes right there if you can. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people end up dead.
Yeah, in the actual event, almost 24 people ended up losing their lives as a result of this hysteria. I mean,
in the real Salem trials,
yeah, in the
not
real
in the
Salem.
Crucible.
I forget how many of the characters in the play ended up dying. Almost all of the main cast, but in actual Salem, 20 different people lost their lives. Wow.
That's really really sad.
Under either because they were accused and therefore executed for being a witch, or because they died in prison while waiting for trial or something like that. And this includes some of them were children who died. Because if a pregnant woman is accused of being a witch,
then
etc. You can play that out.
Or else they passed away from being crushed to death for not confessing that they were involved with witchcraft or anything like that.
That was only one guy, though.
Well, yeah, Giles Corey.
So Hocus Pocus takes this idea and kind of, in some ways, tames it.
Yeah.
Because it's actually real in Hocus Pocus. Like, the whole scary thing about the Salem witch trials is that it was just hysterical and that people were selling their friends out to save themselves and that it was all founded on this lie. But in Hocus Pocus, like, these are legitimate witches who are actually killing people and who are then executed. It's, I don't know, in some ways it kind of makes more sense.
It's terrifying.
Oh, it's still terrifying, yeah. But it's like the difference between a scary movie that just suddenly jumps out at you and scares you versus the scary movie that just kind of creeps you out and lets you continue to think and play it over in your head and freak yourself out. Like the Crucible is the second one. It's disturbing. It's like it's unsettling. Hocus Pocus is scary in its own way, but it's
a lot of comedic relief in it, though.
Yeah, and it's all just kind of up front. So Then they could get back to the jokes.
Quick question. So, in the Salem witch trials, was the Malleus Maleficarum a thing, or did that come around later?
Oh, no, Did
I even say that right? I don't know.
That's a good question. The Malleus Maleficarum. It definitely predates the Salem witch trials. Because the witch trials were in the 1600s.
Yes.
And this, it's kind of hard to date.
Yeah. Well, if I remember right, this came out of the witch trials in England.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Yeah. This was the witch hunting manual that was possibly written as early as 1485, but all throughout the 1500s. This was the European kind of handbook for identifying and then, we'll say, dealing with a problem of a witch. It's really weird to read.
Pretty much, yeah.
It's in a bunch of, I'm just going to randomly open up to a part, and let's see how bad of a mistake that is. Okay, so I just randomly opened to... let's find a place I can actually read. Okay, so it's the Malleus Maleficarum. It basically goes as a series of questions, almost like a gigantic FAQ. So you've got all these questions about witches? Well, here's where you go to answer. So, here's a question. Question 11. That witches who are midwives in various ways kill the child conceived in the womb and procure an abortion. Or if they do not, this offer newborn children to devils.
Oh.
So it lays this out, and then if you read through the couple of pages here, it talks about, and they might do this, and they might do that. So with the suggestion kind of being, if you see a woman doing this, be aware, she might be a witch. And then you can flip over to the next section to tell you how to, here's from the second part, prescribed remedies for those who are obsessed owing to some spell. Like if a witch happens to control someone's mind with magic, here's the handbook on how to fix that with. So I don't know why this doesn't count as kind of casting spells of your own, but I guess using evil to fix evil.
It's kind of like the couple people that were forward thinkers that were really skeptical about any type of magic. They would always have to preface their work with there's no such thing as magic. Except for, Jesus.
Yeah, exactly.
He was pretty magical. He did it right. Don't burn me at the stake. There was that sort of thing that would happen. But the Malleus Maleficarum brings up another name that is predominantly associated with the English witch trials and stuff. His description comes into Hocus Pocus with the firefighters. And they're talking about the long black robes, and they're the witch hunters, and they have an axe to chop the wood to burn the witches at the stake. It makes me think of Matthew Hopkins, if you have any idea who that is. He was the self-appointed witch hunter general in England, and he was responsible for, about 230 victims that were accused of witchcraft. And I think it started out as kind of like an honorable type of thing, but then he just decided that, I'm going to go after as many people as I can type of.
So was this like a serial killer, or was he?
No, I think he was just kind of like power hungry, and he's like, well, if I find them guilty of witchcraft, I could take this from them.
Oh, and, isn't that convenient?
Very convenient.
You're
right?
a witch, so I get all of your worldly possessions.
So yeah, and he.
It's a good deal for Matthew.
He used the Maleficarum quite a bit. In fact, he also used his own methods that were, just like, well, you can't confess, or I can't force a confession out of you, but I can totally throw boiling water or something on you until you tell me that you are a witch.
Was he the one that I always remember is the dunking method?
Yeah, he used that quite a bit too.
Where they would tie a woman into a chair and then basically dunk her underwater until she confessed. And if she confessed, then to being a witch, then they would burn her at the stake. And if she didn't confess, then she would drown, and they would know, well, I guess she wasn't a witch.
So, yeah, that's pretty much
either way, I guess Matthew still gets her stuff.
Well, yeah, it says one of his favorite methods was to fling the accused bound into water because a witch, having denied his or her baptism, would in turn be repelled by the water, so they would float. And if they didn't float, they drowned, and either way, you were kind of
you're screwed.
Out of luck.
You're gonna die either way.
Kind of an unfair trial, I would say.
Catch-22.
So,
and the Malleus Maleficarum. At some point, I'm going to figure out how to say that. It's divided into 3 main parts, and the third part is all about like legal proceedings. It's all about the judicial part of the ecclesiastical and the civil courts to justify this whole process, I suppose, or to try and justify it. I wonder what Hocus Pocus would have been like if Max. Yeah, I wonder what Hocus Pocus would have been like if Max could have gotten his hand on a copy of a book like this.
Well, they do use the book at one point to repel the witches by finding salt.
The human skin-bound book.
The human skin-bound book.
Which, side note, you know that there's actually a few books out there. There's not a lot because it is such a taboo sort of thing, but that there are actually a few books that are in existence that are known to be bound in human skin. Harvard is supposed to have at least one, maybe as many as 3. There's a term for this. Anthropodermic bibliopegy.
Ew.
That sounds even that word
that just sounds gross.
Everything about that sounds disturbing, right? But just a couple of years ago, they confirmed that there is at least one book in the Harvard Library that's bound by human skin. It does not have an eye that floats all around in it, as far as I'm aware. But
it's not worth it then.
Just wash your hands after handling it.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Just like the leather couches.
Yeah. Yeah, I hope our couches aren't made from the people.
No, they're not.
That's good.
Would that be just like the greenest way of... that's what I want to happen
Recycling.
when I die. Yeah.
We should move on.
I'm going to be turned into a couch.
I feel like there's been so many parts of this podcast where we should just move on.
Yeah, but then you have people like sitting on you and...
We're going to cut this out, aren't we?
That was the
couch. Gee, thanks, Bobby.
So,
hey, here's an easy one. Here's a quick one. Where do you know where the name of the movie comes from? Hocus Pocus?
I do not. Do you?
Or the phrase Hocus Pocus? It's one of those phrases that it's kind of like abracadabra, or
it's been around forever and nobody knows where it came from.
Not for sure. The etymology of it has been
Latin.
Debated at least for 400 years. I mean, we figure that, it probably does have some Latin root. Probably, and I think this makes sense here, that it's connected to a part of the Latin Mass in the Catholic Church. That if you go to a Latin Mass, I don't know where you'd still be able to do that, but when the priest blesses the elements for the Mass, the bread and the wine, the Latin phrase that he is supposed to say is, "This is my body." It's it's the line that Christ says in the Gospels. This is my body, and that's supposed to be the moment that changes the bread into the body of Christ through the whole doctrine of transubstantiation that we're not going to get into. But in Latin, the phrase "this is my body" is "hoc est corpus meum." Hoc est corpus meum. Hocus pocus. I mean, it kind of sounds... They figure maybe this is it's like a corrupted version of that same kind of line. Okay. Because as early as the 1600s, we see jugglers using it in their street acts to kind of like be the ta-da moment, like... Here it is. Instead of here it is, it's Jesus. It's here it is, my magic trick out on the street. And
well, that's another thing that I think we should address real quick. The term juggling was like the umbrella term for any type of street performance, any type of busking or magic. Before magic, or what was it? Got to quote some Bizarre States real quick. P.T. Barnum kind of divided up the magic from juggling. Juggling was, what we think of now, and then there was magic, which was, illusions, sleight of hand type thing. Mm-hmm. So back in the 1600s, it was all juggling. witchcraft was considered.
Yeah, so that would make Hocus Pocus even fit even better.
Yeah,
the phrase Hocus Pocus. So there is something that Allison says in the movie right at the beginning when Max is all cynical about the story. Right at the beginning when Max is all cynical about the story that the teacher's telling, Allison just kind of rolls her eyes, right, and says, Halloween, it's All Hallows Eve. It's the one night of the year when the spirits of the dead return to Earth. Everybody knows that.
Yeah, geez, Max.
Come
boy.
On. Californian.
No offense to Californians.
Take all the
None
offense
taken.
you want.
But I would say Halloween. I mean, I don't know. What do you think of when you think of the holiday of Halloween? That by the time this episode drops, it's going to be almost here. So, what do you think of when you think of Halloween?
The first thing that I think of is the ancient tradition of Samhain, because I watched so many Halloween documentaries because it's such a good holiday.
So you really, it's really special to you. It's close to your heart.
Yeah, I like pumpkins.
Okay, pumpkins.
And chocolate and candy. And apparently diabetes.
Get some pumpkin
So the
spice.
commercialized aspect of Halloween.
Oh, yeah. I also like, the
TSLs.
costumes and then the movie night. You have the Halloween movie night and then you have all the trick-or-treating. And it's such a good time.
They're lovely.
It's lovely.
When I think of Halloween, I automatically go to binge eating, like, really crappy, delicious, sugar-laden candy. And watching the old black and white horror movies.
Okay.
Yeah.
I always throw Arsenic and Old Lace into that group, too, though.
So good.
It's a good film.
Well, Teddy Roosevelt's a pretty good horror movie. Horror movie monster.
I just turn on the news.
I think now maybe this is partly why I never really got into Hocus Pocus, because we never really did much with Halloween when I was a kid.
Oh,
I
really?
have been trick-or-treating, not counting going out with my daughters. I went trick-or-treating once, and it was when I was 19. And it was because
that's so sad.
all of the people in my dorm in college said exactly what you just said. Oh, we gotta go. We got some very strange looks that night.
Well, I'm sure it's kind of hard to go trick-or-treating in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, that's not so much a thing. But,
That's true. You were
even still
out of the country a lot.
Even still. But yeah, I never really did much. I mean, Halloween's kind of fun. I think I'm just kind of fascinated with it from the more cultural standpoint. Like, I would say it is the most American holiday that we have, because it is such a mashup of different traditions from around the world. It's the whole melting pot idea of America.
Right up there with the 4th of July.
No,
very
honestly,
story cauldron-esque,
I would say
Anthony.
it's. I mean, it's American in a different sense. Like the 4th of July is explicitly about America and the birthday and all that, but like the idea of what American culture is all about, of different people coming together and doing things. And then, I mean, if you want to be a little cynical, you could bring the commercialization into it too. I mean, there is definitely that. And because Halloween it's not really celebrated elsewhere. I mean, there are now, as American culture is kind of filtered out internationally, there are more places doing it, but it's really just something that we do here.
Yeah.
We were kind of talking yesterday about the root of Halloween and how, it kind of originated as like a Memorial Day to celebrate the dead. And we've kind of turned it into...
Is that Samhain? I don't know much about it.
Like Samhain, All Saints Day, Day of the Dead, all that type of stuff. Kind of all wrapped into our one modern holiday. In Ireland, it was, Samhain, and that was it's where the veil between
the living and the dead was
in the fairy
thinnest.
realm and all that.
Was it
type
the
of stuff.
dead or was it the fairy realm, or were those basically the same thing?
Pretty
It was
similar.
both.
Okay.
Where that was kind of lifted, very similar to, the Day of the Dead. And actually, there's a new Disney movie coming out that's all about that.
Coco,
yeah.
Yeah.
Should
be fun.
So it's very, very similar, and I feel like it's all kind of wrapped up in the same cultural package and melted into what we celebrate now.
So the whole idea of trick-or-treating and dressing up and going around door to door Where does that come in?
No idea.
America.
All right.
We just want to go out and ask people for free stuff.
I mean,
Dress up weird
how
and
more
ask for
American can
candy.
you get?
Well, I do know a little
no
bit about
idea.
this. Since the veil was lifted between the fairy realm and the human realm, you had to disguise yourself so you wouldn't be kidnapped by the fairies and have to spend an entire year there.
Holy cow.
And because, then we get into the whole changelings thing. We get into all this different stuff. But one of the big things was like, okay, you're going to protect yourself. You're going to disguise yourself. And then there's jack-o'-lanterns. That's where those come from as well. You're going to scare off whatever's going to come at you.
But now remind me, because the pumpkin, that's a New World fruit.
It was originally turnips.
It was turnips. Okay, I knew it was something. I didn't think it was potatoes.
Terrifying.
I wanted to make an Iron
turnips.
joke. Turnips. Turnips can be terrifying.
Oh, we need to
used as
post
lanterns.
in the show notes. We need to post some pictures of these terrifying turnip jack-o'-lanterns.
They sound
Okay.
scary.
I mean, it's a turnip.
I mean, it's a turnip,
not
so it's
like-
going to be
it's
kind of
gonna be a
scary.
lot of fun.
Okay, so we never got to ask Melissa, what do you think of when you hear about Halloween?
I just get excited for fall and pumpkins and scary movies.
How
Pretty
basic.
yeah. Literally.
I mean, same though.
I mean, I don't know what else anyone thinks of when they think of Halloween, but, witches and scary things and fall.
But that's a
We're
good
in
thing.
Idaho. We get to experience fall.
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
Sometimes
Unless
we go
winter
from
slaps
summer
you right in the face in
straight to
September.
So, I mean, it's a kind of a weird way to talk about it, right? I mean, I like being scared. Being scared is supposed to be a bad thing.
I don't like being
biologically.
scared.
But you're excited for scary movies.
I like making fun of
Here's
people
the
when they
thing.
get scared.
I get excited about the idea of scary movies. I cannot watch them. I
Okay.
can't. Nope.
Fair enough.
You can't even.
I literally can't.
All right, and I know the whole process of trick or treating is. I mean, do people actually trick?
It started out as tricking,
That-
straight up tricking, and then people would hey,
bribe you to go away.
go away.
Yeah.
But there was also like the little
Don't look at me.
I'm sorry. I remember a story about everybody would have these little memorial biscuits. Okay, yeah, we're going to celebrate the dead with these biscuits. Here, have one type of a thing, and that was your treats.
Let me go make you a
what?
cup of tea
It's a
at the same time.
See, and I've always thought dressing up and going around asking for candy was weird. Even as a kid, I was like, this is weird. I feel awkward. I don't want anything from these people. And I was a cat for like 8 years because I just didn't care.
Well, yeah, and see, it's funny. It used to be this idea of hide from the spirits, but now it's I like cats, so I'm gonna be a cat. Or I like Iron Man,
Or a witch.
or yeah, whatever. I mean,
Something easy and obviously related to Halloween. Black cat, witch, I'm a ghost.
Oh yeah, that's the easiest. That's Charlie
I'm a
Brown
serial
right
killer.
there.
Hold a knife
can't tell,
and
but I'm a
glue
serial
some
killer.
cereal boxes on your sweatshirt.
Oh, 10 out of 10. I remember one year I went this one direction and I just had a shirt with an arrow on it.
Nice.
All right, so the origins of trick-or-treating. I was kind of right when I mentioned the little biscuits and stuff. So there's a couple different origins. Mumming on a certain holiday would be going door to door, and it's kind of like Christmas caroling. You want to entertain these people, and then in exchange for entertaining them, you got a little treat. So that was considered mumming, and that's one of the origins. But then you also have the Samhain festival, where the souls of the dead and fairies would come into the human world, and you would appease them if they would come to your door by giving them treats. So they didn't, wreck your house and
So
steal your
that's
babies.
kind of what we're mimicking.
Yeah.
By dressing up and asking for candy. Like, if you give me candy, I won't go in your house and tear everything up.
If you
Side
give me
note.
Thank
candy,
you.
I won't egg your house later because you're a horrible human being to a small child.
Did anyone think it was weird in Hocus Pocus that they just wander into that house?
Well,
the
it's a
one with the
museum.
devil?
No.
Oh.
When they go to Allison's house, they walk up and they're talking about how, that's fine. They must be really rich.
Oh, yeah.
And then they just like waltz right in the front
Because they're going to
door.
knock on the door and get candy.
But they walk in. Like they don't.
Yeah, they do straight up walk in.
Okay, yeah, that is a little bit weird. It's a movie.
Maybe it's because there was a party happening and it was kind of like...
The door was
"Everybody
open.
come in."
Wait, they try to knock or they try to ring the doorbell or something, don't they? And then they can't get in, so they're just like, oh, let's just
I don't
walk
know.
in.
I was probably asleep.
You were probably asleep.
You know, you got to do what it takes to get those king-size candy bars on Halloween. They did not come here to mess around. You have to hit up all the rich neighborhoods.
That's what we did.
Same.
So, another origin of trick-or-treating
Yeah.
is actually mentioned by Shakespeare
What?
in The Two Gentlemen of Verona. And it was people going from parish to parish asking for soul cakes in memorial of the dead.
Is this the biscuit you were thinking
This
of?
is the biscuit that I was thinking of.
Crazy.
Gotta risk it to get the biscuit. Go
Yeah,
on.
because people would probably kill you if you were walked onto their property.
And hence the phrase.
So yeah, I mean, they would say, souls for a soul cake, pray for you, good mistress, a soul cake. And then they asked for mercy on Christian souls for a soul cake. And that turned into trick or treat and a multi-billion-dollar Reese's business. So,
And costumes,
Just like
man,
Easter.
those are just expensive.
right?
Probably
I'm
make
all
your own.
for just growing a beard out and being like, hey, I'm a lumberjack.
And you're okay.
Remember one year in college, I duct taped a shoe to a hat, and I was a piece of gum. That was pretty easy.
That's
I
clever.
like that.
Huh.
So what does this have to do with Hocus Pocus?
Well, it starts out. They're all trick-or-treating, and that kind of starts out the story, I
Yeah,
think.
if it wasn't for Max having to take his sister out trick-or-treating, there would not have been a movie. Because he never would have made it to Allison's, and they never would have gone to the house, and the Virgin would have never lit the flame.
And all these little kids would be not wearing costumes as they were zombified and walking towards the cottage.
Really was
I like
hoping
the
for-
part where the witches are confused because the one is like, I smell children, but I don't see children because they're all dressed up.
Yeah.
And then they rip the mask off. They're like, why are they wearing these?
It's a mockery.
Let me see your driver's permit.
I don't even know
Halloween,
what
we
it is.
celebrate Halloween on October 31st. Halloween, or sometimes All Hallows Eve. Right, it's the day before All Saints' Day, which is actually a really important day in the Roman Catholic Church. It's a holy day of obligation, so you are expected to go to Mass on that day. And it's the day that is set aside to remember all of the people who have died in the previous year. So it's like a massive memorial service for everybody that's been lost. It's and that's on November 1st. So the day before All Saints' Day is All Saints' Eve, or sometimes called All Hallows' Eve. So this was established in the mid-8th century. It's bounced around exactly what day it was celebrated. At different points it was celebrated in April or it was celebrated in May, but eventually it got attached to October and the harvest festivals. And some people suggest maybe it was to compete with other kinds of festivals like Samhain or other kinds of harvest-oriented celebrations in different pagan traditions. Because that's really what Halloween is now. It's kind of part harvest festival. You're bobbing for apples. You're doing these things that with pumpkins. Celebrating the harvest, but also incorporating all of these spiritual elements to it as well. So All Saints' Day and All Souls' Day that is supposed to come right after it, and then All Hallows' Eve leading up before it. It's this big religious observance, not just in the Roman Catholic Church, but in any kind of liturgical form of Christianity. So Eastern Orthodoxy, Lutheranism, Episcopalians, I believe, are going to observe that. But it's basically just a church service day. I mean, it's not it has nothing to do with dressing up, obviously. There's the whole idea that the veil is thinner between this world and the next. That's not really something you're going to find in Orthodox Christianity. It's
kind of makes sense, though, that you wouldn't find that in a religious institution.
Right. So it at least not in itself. But obviously, if you go to Ireland, you're going to have a lot of Orthodox Catholics who are also going to be influenced by these older native traditions like the fairy stories and things like that. And so in their daily lives, they're going to kind of not really distinguish between the two.
Yeah.
And, you add enough of that together in the same place and out pops Halloween.
Don't forget a nice dose of commercialism.
Mm-hmm.
So, we've talked about all these things, and to be honest, I had a feeling that this was going to be a fairly short episode because all of us just want to go out and celebrate the holiday. And, but before we move on too far, there's a few questions that I have for you guys.
Okay.
Anthony, since you have just barely watched this movie, it's not as nostalgic and rooted.
I have no nostalgia for this movie. I have less than 24 hours of nostalgia for it.
So, well, exactly. So, give us your honest take. Have we overhyped it? What did you really think of it?
I thought it was entertaining. I laughed. It was funny. I did fall asleep, but when I went back and finished it, I laughed. I would not be against seeing it again. I don't think it was as overhyped as some movies. There are definitely movies that I hear about, and like A Nightmare Before Christmas. That's a movie that people love, and I understand that people love it, but I just don't really get it. This one I understand. I understand why people love it, even if I don't have the 25, 30 years of passion for that some people do. So, I'm loath to put a number to rating it. 8 out of 10, 6 out of 10. I can't do that. But
give it a percentage.
Oh,
because that's Rotten Tomatoes right there.
It's the same thing. That's no different.
Well, I give it an 83%. Okay, so you give it an 8.
I give it 3 pinkies and a piece of pumpkin pie.
All right.
I don't know. I like
pumpkin pie.
I thought it was
wacky
fun.
rating system.
Well, yeah, it makes as much sense as anything else.
On a scale of 1 to turkey, I give it a pumpkin pie.
I would watch if they made a sequel. I would be interested in seeing a sequel. I know that the stars have really talked about doing that. Bette Midler, she's actually in some of her. It was a few years ago, but she was doing a concert tour and she dressed up as her character from this.
That's amazing.
And continues to talk about how she really, really, really liked being a part of that movie.
I think I read something saying that was her favorite character and favorite movie that she was in.
I can see why. It looks like it was a lot of fun to be in.
And they're witty. Mm-hmm. It's hilarious.
Well, she is.
She is.
Sarah Jessica Parker.
Freaking
I don't know if
lips.
she's all that witty. So, yeah, I think you might overhype it some, but not. I think I get.
It was well received with the hype.
Yeah, it was fun.
Right, cool. All right, so I know the rest of us kind of feel.
We have an emotional attachment to the movie.
Yeah, we feel pretty strongly about it.
Mm-hmm.
So, is there anything you would change about it? I know that's like asking to change your great aunt or something. But
yeah, I was going to say some sort of family.
Yeah.
I would totally keep it the way it is. There's a reason that it's lasted as well as it has, and it's even though some of it is really dated with the character Ice.
Ice. That's right.
Ice.
It still holds up. A sign of the times that the movie was made in, but everything else is pretty timeless if you think about it. It's kind of got that universal theme of.
Oh yeah.
Well, it's
good,
like a
evil.
time capsule. That's something you
that
wouldn't
too.
want to change about it, just because it's like, oh dang, people actually said the word tubular once upon a time.
I'm just glad Rosie O'Donnell was not cast for that part as the witch that wears the red, because she was originally supposed to play that witch.
Oh.
And I kind of feel like I'm happy she didn't. I'm sorry.
I'm
trying to imagine what it would have been
I would
like
agree
with her.
that.
That's the one who like does the weird thing with her mouth, right?
Yeah, it smells children.
Yeah.
Yes.
Rides the vacuum.
Winnie.
Yes.
I smell children.
Yeah, she was. I think
She did a really good job.
I think I liked her character more than the other two, just because she was. I don't know. She seemed the funniest.
Yeah,
like you're
she's fun.
supposed to like Bette Midler's character, and you're supposed to laugh at.
See, I just
Sarah Jessica
really
Parker's.
like Bette Midler. So
Well, sure. I mean, who you can't.
I mean, she's pretty salty on Twitter, though. So makes me like her a little bit more.
The part that I absolutely love is when they walk into their master's house, you know, and she sits down and starts watching TV, and she's like, "Wow!"
With the baby. Dun, 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 dun.
Yeah, I love that part, and because she's living for it. She's like, "This is amazing," and then you know, it's a chocolate covered finger of a man named Clark.
Ugh, it's disgusting.
So I mean, I really would not change a bit.
No, I wouldn't change anything. Yep, no.
Can you see them making a sequel to this? Would that make sense, or would that
I don't know
just
what they would do.
ruin a good thing?
I think it would ruin a good thing.
I mean,
My
they
opinion.
pretty much just made it so that there really shouldn't be a sequel.
Well, I don't know. There's the book at the very end is looking all around.
Yeah,
Yeah, but the three witches are gone.
doesn't
But
mean
are
somebody
they?
can't pick up the book.
Maybe Ice will get the book.
But you,
Oh.
That would be entertaining.
Get the two male
Because aren't they there in
wizards
that scene? They're in the cages, and then
singing
it
"Row,
pans
row,
over.
row your boat."
Right, and it pans over,
Still
and then
there
there's
at
the
the
book.
end.
So, Melissa, is there anything that you would change about Hocus Pocus?
No,
Just love it.
I do. I just love it. It makes me happy. I look forward to it every Halloween and every day.
Every other month in between when you watch it.
Yeah. It was such a treat to watch it when I was a kid, though, because we didn't have cable.
Yeah,
So now that I can watch it any time, it's still amazing.
that's good. All right. So last question, Anthony. Who would you recommend it to?
I think that it really seems like if you're going to get the most mileage out of this movie, you need to watch it as early as possible. I don't think it's all that scary. Having not seen it, I wasn't sure whether I would watch it with like my 7-year-old or not. But now, I would have no problem watching this with her, because even the parts that are kind of scary, I mean, they really aren't that scary. You should be able to handle it when you're 7.
Yeah.
So I think that that being able to grow up with it, like you guys are talking about, it's it would be fun. But don't go into it expecting an amazing, life-changing story. It's comforting, like you said. It's really sweet, and it's one of those things, kind of like I could see it being one of those things like watching Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer every Christmas, watching Hocus Pocus every Halloween, because that's what you've done.
It's like a rite of passage.
Yeah, Melissa.
I recommend it to everybody and their dog.
Same, except I would throw cats into the mix too.
Oh yeah,
Because Halloween.
Mm-hmm.
and Thackeray Thanks. Yeah, Garrett. Recommendations.
I just gave mine.
Everybody and their dog and cat.
Yes.
Oh,
Even
alright.
turtles.
And myself, I would recommend this to everybody. I mean, it's just great storytelling. Plus, I mean, it gets people a little bit interested in actual American history. The Salem witch trials and stuff. I mean, it's a dark period in American history, but it's something that happened, and it shapes quite a bit of New England and that whole area. And then it also is just great social commentary if you look at the Crucible. And I think that's kind of an entry point for those different things. And I mean, if you talk about the Crucible, you'd be like, like the same town and witches and stuff as in Hocus Pocus. They'll be like, oh, I'm familiar with that. Then it kind of opens the door. And
Have you? Do you think that this is still something that people are growing up with? Like, if you were to talk about Hocus Pocus with a class that's reading The Crucible now, would they get the reference?
I hope so.
Well, they still play it on TV
Yeah.
around Halloween.
If anybody's familiar with the Disney Channel, I'm pretty sure that they're familiar with Hocus Pocus.
It's always played on Disney Channel, and then Freeform, which was formerly ABC Family.
Yeah.
They play it multiple times during the
Was it
It's a classic now.
13 Days of Halloween or something like that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I know it's one of those movies that we grew up with watching repeatedly, so I'm sure that tradition's kind of going to move on to our generation and their kids. So I can only imagine it's going to turn into one of those seasonal classics, just like Miracle on 34th Street for Christmas. And even the monster movies, maybe they'll rehash something,
You think they'll
with
reboot
the sequel.
Hocus Pocus?
So this brings us to the end of the hour, but one quick question. John McClane versus the Sanderson sisters.
Is it like a kiss, marry, kill sort of thing? Because I think he would...
It's been so long since I've heard this game called that.
he was... I don't think he would have much trouble handling any of them. I mean...
But they have magical powers.
Well, yeah, and he's got a
punch?
Yeah, no, he's
usually got a machine gun.
He's got a machine gun. Ho, ho, ho.
I've got a machine gun.
That's right. I mean, from a distance, puts in some earplugs. It's going to be fine. I'm not worried. I mean, he might seduce the blonde one for a little while.
Because that's difficult.
Right. It's not hard.
It's a boy.
and then he would drop her off a building without her vacuum cleaner.
Yeah. Or mop or broom or whatever.
Any cleaning supplies.
I want to see that fan art now. John McClane just
blowing up some witches.
Yeah, with the book in his hand.
That would be look like an
The
Evil
sequel.
Dead 2 type thing.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that can be the sequel.
I want to see him fighting
It's a
the book,
mashup.
actually.
All right, so that's it for today. Thanks for joining us on the Story Cauldron. The music for this episode is from the band Hook Sounds.
And as always, you can find us on Instagram and Twitter and on Facebook, The Story Cauldron, all 3 places.
And don't forget to check out www.thestorycauldron.com. And that way you can rate us on iTunes and leave a review.
It helps other people find our podcast and just makes us feel all good inside that you care about us enough to share us with your friends. And until next time,
Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.
And happy Halloween.
Bye.